Welcome back for the 7th and final lesson in how to use the NASB at the Lockman.org page. So let's first of all get back to the Lockman Foundation's page, www.lockman.org. There's the page with which we're familiar. We'll go down here and we want to pick a word to study. The word we're going to pick this time, we want to pick a word to, as I say, that we want to study. So many of you know that I wrote a book called Everyone is Going to Heaven, and one of the things it does to explain the biblical case for everyone going to heaven is that it studies the usage of the word Sheol. So let's say that you wanted to set that book aside and say, well, look, I want to study the word for myself and see for myself what the Bible says. So I'm going to enter Sheol. Here is the word that I want to study. I want to search the whole Bible, not just the Old Testament and New Testament, and let's see what we find. Here we find the word Sheol turns up 65 times in the Bible. We've got it on these pages. Now let's jump to the last page here, the 4th page, and you'll see that the 4th page ends with Amos, Jonah, and Habakkuk. These are prophets in the Old Testament. So there are no New Testament usage of the word Sheol, which is just what I told you in the book. And in fact, there's an appendix in the book that lists out all these scriptures, at least the addresses, like Ezekiel 32:27 and so on. And it also lists out some other words. For example, it lists out Hades. So if we enter Hades in here, we'll see that there are 10 occurrences. And again, the book will tell you that. And these are all, you'll notice, in the New Testament. They start with Matthew and they end with Revelation. And of course, that makes sense. That's what we saw. Sheol was the term in the Old Testament. Hades was a different word, but meaning the same thing in the New Testament. Sheol being of Hebrew origin and Hades being of Greek origin. So be aware also that there are a lot of English Bible translations who you first of all, you couldn't get this kind of search on, or if you did, you wouldn't be able to find the word Sheol in it at all. Some of especially the more paraphrased versions, won't use it because their reasoning is, well, most people don't know what the word Sheol means, so we'll just use some word like grave or death or something like that. But what happens is, over time, the knowledge of the way people in biblical times understood these writings gets lost because people today are not brought into that awareness. So let's go back and say we're going to study the word Sheol in every occurrence. Now, the way these pages are laid out, you may have seen these little icons to the left here. The C means context. So this is Genesis 37:35. If I wanted to see that in context, I'd click on the C. And there's the verse in bold, 37:35, and we can read it in context. And sometimes reading it in context means reading beyond the current chapter, so we'd go here to the next chapter to see how it continued. By the way, the first verse is just sort of an idiosyncrasy of this site, that the first verse is bold every time you use it. So back to 37:35, there it is in context if we want to study it that way. And then this N is for notes, and that's when other people who are using this site have written notes on a verse. You can click on it and look at those notes. I hardly ever use that. In fact, it's probably been several years since I even looked at it. But this last one over here, this is the gold mine, the one that says I, and that stands for information. So if I click on that, it takes me to a page, and don't be intimidated by this, but here you see the NASB and then the Amplified. We don't, as I said, for our purposes, we don't care about the Amplified. On the NASB, there's Genesis 37:35. There's the N icon again. We don't need that. There's the context. If I clicked on that, that would take you back to what we've already seen. So what are all these numbers in here? Well, the numbers that you see by these words are Strong's Concordance numbers. And a Strong's Concordance is, there was a man named Strong, I don't remember what his first name was, but in the late 19th century, I think it was, he made an index, a list of every word in the Bible and what chapter and verse that it appeared in. Did all that manually long before the age of computers. It was just an amazing thing. Of course, now this can all be done with computers much more easily. But what that did was it allowed people who do not know Hebrew and Greek to be able to trace back the original words. Now, I don't want us to make too much of this. And by the way, this clip's going to be longer than the others, so be aware of that. It's the concluding one, and it's making everything else has led up to this point, so we won't be quite as quick on this one. It's very valuable to understand Greek into Hebrew. And just because we have a Strong's Concordance and we can look up what a word is in that language, although that puts us in a much better position than if we weren't able to do that, it's not the same thing as being able to read the original language. So I don't want us, any of you, and I certainly myself, don't think that this puts me on a par with someone who knows Greek or Hebrew. It just helps me do something that I couldn't otherwise do. It gives me a level of knowledge I wouldn't otherwise have, and I'm very, very grateful for that. But I'm also aware of the limitations, and I don't want to make more of it than should be made of it. That said, if we come down here, we see the word Sheol, and that's got a number by it that looks like 7585, and we can click on it. And what it's going to do is take us to the bottom of the page when we click on it, 7585 down here. And what's going on down here is this is just a presentation of every word that precedes, every number and word that appears in this verse shows up down here. So in some other verse that had different words in it, it would have different words at the bottom. And we can, if we see Sheol there, we can click on it here, go down there, and it gives us the meaning of the word. Sheol, 982D, that refers to another reference work that we don't have, so don't worry about that. It's of uncertain derivation. That means they don't know where the word originally came from. Scholars are uncertain about that. But what it means is underworld, place to which people descend at death. And then it says it's translated as Sheol, and that appears 66 times in the Bible, and we know that they're all in the Old Testament. So we can, I'm going to go back now to the page we were at before. With all these, we can go through and now do a word study. We can go through for ourselves and read every verse in which the word Sheol appears one by one, all 66 of them. We can actually go back and check the context on each one of them, and you can see for yourself how the words are used in context, and you can be sure for yourself how the Bible is using these words, this word, and when you read it, you can understand it. Now, there is much, much more that you can accomplish in terms of how you study the Bible and study words in the Bible with this tool, but I've at least opened the door to it for you. I've shown you that the Lockman.org website is not only a complete presentation of the New American Standard Bible, and it's a basic, makes it a searchable database, but it has a Strong's Concordance built into it, and through that Strong's Concordance you can study words. You can study, we just saw how you could study Sheol. You can do the same thing with Hades. And if we take this first verse here, go to the information section, and we look for descend to Hades, that's 86. Click on 86, and there's 86. Hades, perhaps from one, let's talk about the two Greek words. The 1491A, I don't remember right now what it is, but you could look that one up too. And I'll probably do a later video series where I'll show you more how to use these other terms. But it says Hades, the abode of departed spirits, and that's consistent with Sheol being the underworld as well. And that Hades is translated as Hades 10 times in the New Testament. Sometimes words are translated different ways. For example, look at this next word, 1096, genomai, and look at all the different ways it's translated. It's translated one time as accomplished, 3 times as appeared, 1 time as arise, 2 times as arises, 6 times as arose. And you see there are many, many ways that it can be translated. So Some of these studies can be very complex, but this is a very rich field for study. And what you're seeing below here is the Strong's Concordance material, and above is the New American Standard, and that's the linkage. I hope you found this helpful. I hope it's opened a door of study for those of you who want to dig in. And even though you don't know Greek or Hebrew, you want to feel a closer touch with the words of the Bible that you're reading in English. If you want more help, you can go to MikeGant.com. Gant is 2 T's, and from there, if you get to MikeGant.com, just follow the menu, and you'll be able to get to all sorts of resources that will help you learn more about Jesus and how to find him in the Bible, how to understand the Bible through him, because he's what the Bible is all about. Thank you, and God bless you.